The child was born but couldn't sit still. 86 years later with no regret. You know that man can't sit still yet. The Great Depression couldn't get him down. He worked for his dad's store in town, collecting money in small amounts for poor whites and blacks in their furniture accounts. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. As he'd collect, he'd talk to folks. He'd hear legends, tales, songs, and jokes. Now this fine treasure he'd record and write. He was colorblind, didn't see black and white. Writer's project for the WPA. With Zora Neale Hurston, he earned his pay. Crackers and blacks, they talk for hours. It was a barefoot history in this land of flowers.
On the 11th of February 2018, the week that was, we are a little bit late. We normally have this program on Saturday. However, we are here on Sunday morning. Not unusual. We've done this before. We have Uncle Carl, a usual segment of the program here. He's writing in the Wall Street Journal. But firstly, we'll go to the Washington Post. A few events here, some that have been in the news before. We'll start out with Hope Hicks, and we'll touch on the Porter scandal. Porter, of course, was forced to leave the White House after being endorsed by the White House. Nonetheless, this is from the Washington Post. Mary Jordan and Josh Drosy. Anyway, she is known here as the quiet person, at least she's framed in this particular article. Hope Hicks, the discretion aide, always at DJ Trump's side, whose desk is just outside the Oval Office. She is his right-hand woman, former model, and she's 29 years old, worked with Trump longer than anyone who is not related at the White House. Hicks is suddenly flying under the spotlight of scandal, a central figure in two White House controversies. The Russian investigation. She is looked at there for conversations on Air Force One, and the departure of another White House aide who was profiled in the Daily Mirror, a guy named Rob Portland. He's 40 years old, former Rhodes Scholar, but again, that's a congressional appointment there, and a graduate of Harvard University. He, of course, left his job on Wednesday, and now the situation is what will happen to the Chief of Staff, the four-star General Kelly. Well, that's going to be a very interesting situation there. Kelly called Portman a man of true integrity. After he began dating Hicks at one time, and she dismissed the accusations that he had been involved in any of his abusive behavior with his ex-wives, which turned out to be fake news at best. Hicks was quiet judgment that had her most valuable currency, had been her most valuable currency in the Trump world. No more. How long will she stick around? That'd be interesting to say. Trump has seen her loyalty on the campaign, and during the turbulent beginning of his administration, he relies on her. That is from Christopher Reddy, a close friend of the president and chief executive of Newsmax. That's a conservative site. Hicks knew an ex-girlfriend that called and made allegations to the White House counsel. That was in late 2017. McGrew. But she continued to date Porter. She did not make the president aware of the developments. She kept that under buttons there. When the allegations became public, General Kelly, I suppose we'll just call him Mr. Kelly, said Portland is a man of true integrity and honor, and I can't say enough good things about him. That response was partially orchestrated by Hicks, causing outrage amongst many, including the National Organization of Women, who called Kelly an enabler of domestic violence. Now, this word enabler has been around. DJ Trump tried to put that handle on Hillary Clinton. She enables supposedly bills transgressions more than 20 years ago. But you have to be very, very careful in politics how you frame various things in terms of semantics. The term here, enabler, is now back at the White House. You have that enabler hat placed on General Kelly, on DJ Trump because of his latest comments about the Me Too movement, echoing some of the comments there that the Me Too movement goes very far. Now, with DJ Trump, he goes back to the campaign in Alabama, what happened down there with Judge Moore. And all of these things are starting to pile up. So how do you frame yourself out of this? Well, he framed himself more deeply. What really matters is where the polling is going with DJ Trump there. This is not where you want to go. There are two problems here. The White House is in chaos. The so-called order maker, General Kelly, is now on his way out, no doubt, because of the level of the scandal. What will happen to Hope Hicks? Will she go back to modeling or go to a PR agency? More than likely she will disappear also, because her name continues to be in the news. What happens if it's a one-day story? That used to be the old frame. It would go away. But with the amplification by a social media, a one-day story can turn into a one-week story. And if it's picked up by the Post and the Times and various other publications, these things are all syndicated across the country. So it doesn't matter where you live. If you live in Washington, you read the story. If you live in Sacramento, California, you read it. Or Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee, or Chicago. The same news is out there, and it's on social media, so you can frame back to it. We put this up there, and now it is there. Porter has called the allegations simply false. Now he's proven to be, and vile, he's proven to be a liar. And that's why he was forced to go out when the Daily Mail, which is known for its, in this country, the National Enquirer type thing, they have these tabloid things. Photo a week, a woman he was married to, Kobe Holderness, with a black eye there. She punched her in the eye, and she produced a photo of her eye with the yellow and purple bruises. And then you have somebody called Jeannie Willoughby, said Porter was physically abusive to her also. So this is where it is. The former Ralph Lauren model. This is Hicks. Her father was a public relations executive at the National Football League. So she was in public relations. She was in fashion modeling. Graduated. I don't know how she got this because she's from Connecticut, Greenwich, Southern Methodist University. So she'd worked for a PR campaign. She's been romantically involved with quite a few people around the Trump campaign. Corey Ludansky, he was a character that had been a state patrol type at one time on the boat patrol, and Trump, of course, fired him. And Hope Hicks inherited the Moose's job. His campaign memo, this is Corey Ludansky, let Trump be Trump. Well, that is oversimplified. That just simply cannot happen anymore, period. He also, Ludansky, described her as having a photogenic memory. He also praised her savvy. That's according to Ruddy. A friend said Hicks' good looks caused some to overlook her abilities. Well, I don't know anything about abilities, but it's there. But Anthony Scaramucci was an interesting person, a good fit to be a PR, but unfortunately for Mr. Scaramucci, he was a little too flamboyant for Trump. He overshadowed Trump, but he was very confident. He only was there 10 days, by all accounts. She was a communications director anyway, dealing with the more sensitive stories about Trump, the special counsel probe, and his family. Well, now she's in jeopardy, and once the communications director or the person that's doing the flippables, etc., becomes a news item, and that's happened to other news people, a long list of them, are now gone. Trump shouts for Hicks to come immediately to the office. She rarely leaves the West Wing during the days, aware that he could want her to come in the office at a moment's notice. Well, no doubt. And now she's embroiled there. The article mentions, and we already talked about that, the Robert Mueller investigation. She had been interviewed by Mueller's investigators. And she has also raged against those who leaked to the media and has defended Trump in every situation where other aides roll their eyes. She frequently told others that Trump is charming and that she wished others saw him as she does. To the public, she remains in the background. That's this Kellyanne Conway, a counselor there. To the president, she is front and center, no doubt about that. But when the front and center a person is attacked, then there are problems. And this is also from the Post in Funhouse mirrors of the Trump White House. Disarray looks like a victory, no doubt about that. When you have low expectations, let's see, this is by Mac Fisher. Anyway, for the president, who often sees himself as standing tall against powerful forces that only want him to fail, things are looking up. The tax cuts were selling well. We're looking up, I should say. We're selling well. He'd gotten credit for a pretty good State of the Union address, again, because of low expectations. Employment numbers were good. His approval rating was improving. In other words, he was going from 36 to roughly an average of about 42. Uncle Carl will talk about that. Any other president would have seen his week to claim this week to claim credit to the House. The Congress actually passed a bipartisan spending bill, and the markets. Well, that's another story, and we'll get to the markets here. Period. the Olympics a fine opportunity for that, to take the high road. Of course, they're going on on the Korean Peninsula. Trump's week ended with a sudden departure of his speechwriter, now who is accused of attacking his wife. The president's defense of another staff member who allegedly, this is Porter, who assaulted 2 wives. I mean, this has brought it down. Now, this speechwriter is even more notorious. He ran a car over his ex-wife's foot, put a cigarette out on her hand, threw her into a wall. Well, this fellow has no place in a civilized society. Trusted aides accused of brutal behavior against 2 former wives. We won't recap where General Kelly is, but General Kelly, no doubt, is packing his suitcase also. So this is what happens here. Steve Bannon has already departed, as they say, in disgrace, crying for his job, according to DJ Trump. Even in, let me see, on the left, on the right alike, the week was perceived as a disaster for Trump, a PR nightmare. That's from the Conservative Weekly Standard. A mess from start to finish. We haven't seen it reflected in the polls. We'll be watching the next few days of that. Pence was in Korea, but the Koreans were marching in a united front. On Saturday, news broke that the South, so-called Republic of Korea President Mr. Moon Jae, in an agreement that he might accept an invitation made at the opening of Olympic Games to meet with Mr. Kim Jong-un. Trump focused instead on the ruckus over 2 staff members that were abusive. More than 2 decades ago, Barack Obama, then a law professor, recognized the power Trump had discovered in painting oneself as a rich celebrity ordinary Americans aspire to be. Trump called Barack Obama called it the unfounded optimism of the average American. I may not be Donald Trump now, but just you wait. If I don't make it, my children will. And this whole thing of looking, that doesn't only apply to the American context, but if you look at Mr. Berlusconi in Italy, made his millions off of media. So one of those things are constantly going on here. Not Trump. He simply does what he has always done and what it takes to claim the center stage. He said in his book, Trump, think like a billionaire, visionary business leader succeeds because they are narcissists, who devote their talents with relenting focus to achieve their dreams, even if sometimes at the expense of those around them. And this is effectively what is happening here. America has always had a love affair with narcissism. And they tend to like it because many people in the country aspire themselves to be narcissistic or individualistic. Although many of these people, through their relationships with their workplaces, their lifestyle, are actually just followers. They're not individualists or following a libertarian type of philosophy. They are dependent. Whereas if you go to entrepreneurial types like a DJ Trump, who have made it through branding himself, etc., that has amassed a lot of financial power, then is a different story. When you have 225, 30 lines of business, if 1 or 2 fail, so what? You have many more lines to go to. It's not like living paycheck to paycheck or having one job or one particular career. That's not the case here. In an entrepreneurial nation, so-called, that basically these entrepreneurial opportunities in the case of DJ Trump and his close political connections in New York to whichever party was in power. And also, over the years, rebranding himself. We were given a presentation early today in the Midwest on diversity, trade, and development, including emerging markets, particularly in the African countries, how it was going, how development occurs through development, and trade as a result of that. And one of the things we featured, opened the presentation up, was at the time Jesse Jackson and his presence on Wall Street, something called the Wall Street Project. And the address at 40 Wall was donated to Operation Push by none other than DJ Trump himself. And he was recognized at a reception as being that. In fact, Jesse gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award for his service to African American people. That was 20 years ago. So you can see Trump was cultivating that. You can see Trump interacting with the audience. The national leader, we'll put this up, Dr. Sharpton was there, and so were many others. Jesse was there, and they were all there. And DJ Trump had his hand on the hand of Dr. Sharpton at the time, and Jesse was sitting there at the table. But you have to understand the evolution or de-evolution of DJ Trump. But now he's front and center in a different situation. At that time, he was the kind of guy that would come into the room and congratulate Jesse on the work he was doing, congratulate African Americans, Latinos, and women in the construction industry building beautiful buildings. Well, the whole idea was, this is a little bit different. He does this now also, promoting other people up, and it promotes him up. So that's kind of in a contradiction on the so-called narcissistic hat they would put on one. Let me just move on here. We've kind of spent some time here wandering around on this. A rail official, this is of the Department of Transportation, resigns because evidently he had another job. This is under Elaine Chao, the wife of the infamous McConnell of Kentucky. And there's been a lot of criticism lately of various things happening. But this guy's name was Hall, was quoted by a TV station, WJTV, in Mississippi, as a representative of the Madison County Sheriff's Department. Oh, boy. I mean, it just gets worse and it gets worse. There, his ethics disclosure referred to Strategic Marketing Group, another marketer there. And the group, the spokesman for Chow office said that Hall had exceeded federal legal requirements when he signed his ethics pledge. And what has happened to Mr. Hall? Well, Hall had early stints at the Federal Railroad Administration as an intern, served as a public affairs director for former Mississippi governor. And in other words, is politically connected is Mr. Hall here, Heath Hall, and the political consultant who served as a spokesman for the sheriff's office. And apparently sometime during his time in Washington at the Federal Rail Administration, anyway, he also resigns. I mean, it's just littered with people being forced to leave. Another little story here: U.S. spies seeking to retrieve cyber weapons paid Russians peddling Trump secrets. This is in the New York Times. Months after months of secret negotiation, a shattered Russian bilked U.S. spies out of $100,000 last year. promising to deliver stolen national security agency cyber weapons in a deal that he insists would also include compromising material on DJ Trump. The cash delivered in a suitcase in Berlin, in a hotel room there, was intended to be the first installment in $1 million payout, as according to American officials. The Russian and communications reviewed by the Times, the thief of secret hacking tools had been devastating to the NSA, etc. Several U.S. intelligence officers say that they made clear that they did not want the Trump material. Cyber criminals, he claimed the information would link the president and his associates to Russia instead of providing the hacker tools. The Russian produced unverified and probably fabricated information involving Trump and others in bank accounts, emails, purportedly Russian intelligence involved in it. The NSA even used its official Twitter account to send code messages. This is just too bizarre. To the Russian a dozen times. So you should follow the NSA. The episode ended this year with the American spies chasing the Russian out of Western Europe, warning him not to return if he valued his freedom. The American businessman said the Trump material was left with the American who had secured it in Europe. The Russians claim to have access to a staggering collection of secrets that include everything from computer codes for cyber weapons stolen from the NSA and CIA to this is the Russian, to a video of Trump converting with prostitutes. We've heard about this scheme. It wouldn't be unusual there. His apparent eagerness to sell the Trump compromat, a Russian term for information used to gain advantage over someone. Oh, I see. Anyway, it was originally for $10 million, and then it went down to $1 million bargain basement sale. The distinction between an organized criminal and a Russian intelligence officer and a Russian who knows some intelligent guy, and it all is blurred together, as Steve Hall, the former chief of Russian operations at the CIA. Well, that could be said for the American situation. Classic was the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. Mobsters involved there, CIA types, ex-CIA types. I mean, they were all over the place. Sam Giancana supposedly was involved in that. I mean, nothing unusual. But the Americans, despite wanting the hacking tools, these cyber weapons had been built to break into computer networks of Russia, China, and other rivals. So now they have them also. So in other words, this was a break-in here and a break-in there. This is this whole thing. And this whole thing about the Russian government wanting to interfere in the elections. The American government has openly interfered in Russian elections. I mean, it wasn't a secret. They hired these, funded these non-governmental agencies, and they had offices in Moscow and other cities, and they were running propaganda. American spies are not the only ones who deal with Russia, claiming to have secrets to sell. This is from Cody Shira, an American political operative with ties to the Democratic Party that has been crisscrossing Eastern Europe for more than 6 months to secure purported compromat from a different Russian. Oh boy, this reads like who's who out here. Before the Americans were negotiating with the Russian, they were dealing with a hacker in Vienna, known only to the American intelligence offices as Carlos. In early 2017, he offered to provide them with a full set of hacking tools that were in the hands of the shatter brokers and the names of other people in his network. The American officer said in exchange he wanted immunity from prosecution in the U.S., but the immunity deal fell apart, so the intelligence officer declined to do what the spies do best. They offered to buy the idea. So, again, like Carlos said, previously dealt with American intelligence operative. They all deal with each other. He served as a fixture of sorts, brokering deals between the Russian Federal Security Service, the FSB, which is a successor to the KGB. I mean, this goes on and on. By late April, it appeared that the deal was immense. Several CIA officers traveled from the agency's headquarters to help the agency's Berlin station handle the scheme. Notorious. A few weeks later, the Russian began handing over data, but in multiple deliveries in October and December. Almost all of what he delivered was related to the 2016 election, alleged ties between Trump associates, Russia, and not the hacking tools. Anyway, to end this up, the Russians didn't give it much thought. He took a sip of the cranberry juice he was nursing, picked up his bag and said thank you, then he walked out the door. I guess that's when he got the earlier this year, Americans gave him one last chance. The Russian once again showed up with nothing more than excuses, so the Americans offered him a choice: start working for them or provide the names of someone in the network, go back to Russia and do not return. So he just disappeared into whatever, thin air. I mean, yeah. Anyway, Reuters basically has the same article here, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Let's go to Uncle Carl. We'll have to find Uncle Carl here. In all of this nightmarish... Oh, here we go. Uncle Carl Robe is writing in the Wall Street Journal, reading the midterm tea leaves. The only certainty about the 2018 House election is that the Republicans will lose seats. This will not be a rare election like 2002, when the GOP gained 8 seats, or 1998, when the Democrats picked up 5. This will likely be the other 16 midterms since World War II. They always like to use that. The problem with using World War II is the nation at that time was a different nation demographically. First of all, it was not gerrymandered as much, but they had the apartheid there, and African Americans were not in the voting circumference in great numbers, only coming in the later 50s and in the 60s. One thing to always remember. Many seats will the GOP drop. The Democrats need 24. Here's what to watch for the first presidential approval rate. Not as much, because with DJ Trump, he's been in the low to high 30s, occasionally hitting 40, but it's now a pattern with him. A Bloomberg analysis found that since 1970, parties who the president had approval ratings below 50% lost an average of 33 in midterm elections, with DJ Trump at 40% in the Gallup tracking daily poll, 42.4 in the Real Clear Politics average of recent polls. This indicates points towards a Democratic takeover. But wait, now low presidential approval rating, and this will be earlier, it turns into a trend, tends to mean bigger gains for the other party. The relationship isn't always as predictable. In 2006, near the height of national anger over the Iraq War, G.W. Bush's approval rating was 38, but that was a different situation. G.W. had been up. Now, of course, G.W.'s up again. Republicans lost 30 seats. But in 2014, Barack Obama was at 42. And that was because of a highly concentrated, targeted racist campaign 4 years against Barack Obama. Roughly the same as Trump's now. The Democrats lost 13 seats. If the GOP matched that performance, it would hold on to the House. Then there's a generic ballot. A generic ballot is very interesting in itself. Depends when you get this news, but the relationship between it and the electoral outcome can vary drastically, as a Wall Street Journal analysis indicated last month. In 2006, Democrats were up by 10 points and picked up 31 seats. In 2008, they were up by 14 points and added only 21 seats. But that was the miracle election of Barack Obama. The GOP tends to add more seats with smaller generic ballot margins. In 1994, Republicans picked up 4 seats. Were up 4 points and gained 52 seats. But again, that was a different situation there in that particular election. And in 2010, now this was a reaction again to Barack Obama. They turned a 2-point lead into a 63-point gain. But this was based upon the unprecedented racist campaign of 2008. In the primary, Hillary the Monster Clinton was running against Barack Obama, and she ran the most racist primary campaign in the history. And then in the general election, 2008, the old man McCain out of Arizona, and they had Sarah Palin there. And again, this was a racist attack on President Obama, and it extended. The Republicans and the monopoly media continues to attack. This was the reason for the 63 seat gain and gerrymandering. In January the 18th, this is ABC Washington Post poll helped illustrate while the generic ballot don't go as far as for Democrats. According to the poll, the party's edge on generic ballot is 38 points in districts it now holds. The GOP average in districts it holds is just 6 points. Concentrated Democratic margins and already safe Democratic is of little help. And no doubt about that. They have to make progress in Republican marginal districts, suburban and extraburbs. Further complicating this year's midterm is what political scientists call a surge and a decline. In the presidential election, the White House winner often begins with new members in marginal seats, then lose those in the midterm. The example was Ronald Reagan a long time ago, 1980. 34 new Republicans came in that route. That was he was running against Jimmy Carter of Georgia. On his coattails, 26 didn't survive the next time around. It was in 1982. Not every new presidential election creates a surge, however. When Trump won in 2016, very tenuous thing, the Republicans lost 6 House seats. This suggests there might be fewer freshmen vulnerable to declines this November. Well, a lot of what's happening, and we've also had another development here, more resignations in Minnesota, the north of Minnesota. The representative there, Mr. Nolan, is not running for re-election. He won 2 very, very close races. In fact, in the Trump landslide in that area, he won re-election. He's 74 years old. He's passing the baton on. And also, we have some news here. I looked at out of the same state. Tim Hu Pawlenty is thinking about running for governor. He was the governor in, 8 years, from 2003 to 2012. But they're different times. He has been a lobbyist at a financial services organization, actually a representative there, millions of dollars a year, a lobbyist for major banks there. He's leaving that, but thinking of returning to the fold, but there is Republican opposition in the race. Detractors there of Tim Hu include the man who would most likely be his chief rival, another Republican. Just before, weeks before the 2016 election, Tim Hu dropped support for DJ Trump, calling him unsound, unformed, unhinged, and unfit. Well, he's tied into that, and the Republican Party in Minnesota has a very conservative wing, and this character's out of it. The guy he run against is a commissioner out of the Minneapolis area named Jeff Johnson. He won some straw poll, which is actually meaningless. Johnson was the GOP nominee for governor in 2014, losing to Mark Dayton. Now he's trying to make a rerun, so he has name recognition. And he goes on to see he seeks to parachute in, and by a primary, I don't think it'll work out well for him, even if he outspends. This is Johnson talking 4-1. Pawlenty will get the money, but how far will the money take Pawlenty? We don't know. And on the Democratic side, there are a bunch of options there, a little bit too early. He was always forward-thinking and trying to build our economy so that Minnesota could react to changes in the job market. That is Tom Hansen, who was state management and budget director under Tim Hu now works as a lobbyist. Well, that would expect that would happen there. And some other reminders of Tim Hu. We had a bridge collapse, his higher tuition fees, property taxes. He left a budget deficit behind. That's an estate auditor, Rebecca Otto. She's also running for governor. She finished second to Tim Waltz, who is a representative from the southern part of Minnesota. Pawlenty was paid $2.7 million in 2016. That's according to IRS documents. He worked for somebody called the Financial Services Roundtable. So they were part of the big lobbying group to get this massive leading the Financial Services Roundtable gave Tim Hu a much deeper perspective regarding a job creation, I bet. Anyway, if he can sell that, he can sell it. People have seen there's real things that happen, real differences between when you win and when you have the governor's office and when you don't. David Fitzsimmons, a GOP operative. Republican voters may have more immediate concerns than policy goals. After 8 years of Dayton, who raised taxes, increased spending, but he also has a budget surplus in that state. So, this sort of thing here, he raised taxes to balance the budget. So those are some things, that we see out here. We'll put this up on the Facebook page. Now we go to ESPN. Let's see where we're going here. This is the Winter Olympics, the medal trackers. The Germans have 2. The Norwegians have 3. Let me get here. The Germans have 2 golds. The Norwegians have 3 silvers. And the Netherlands have 2 bronze. And the Netherlands have a total of 4. And I guess if we look at some people in Norway, I see. 4-2 over Germany. I suppose this is Sweden 1-1. And I'm not sure if this is medals or what we're going here with. Let's see. These are countries. Okay. 1-1. Oh, yeah. The Norwegians have 4. The Germans have 2. That's the total. The goal. Norway has. Netherlands has 1, and Sweden has 1. Anyway, let's see what else we got going here. We're just tracking the medals at this time here. I suppose we get more up to date here. Norway, a total of 8. This is countries here. Netherlands has 2 golds. Norway has 4 silvers and 3, so forth and so on here. Let's get the results here. If we're lucky. all these individual athletes here. This is in the 10K sprint, men's sprint there. Simon Elder and Dominic Landliker, and so forth and so on. The cross country, yeah. So some events here. Anyway, let's go on to the NBA. We'll get back on the Monday morning quarterback, because today we'll take all these up. The Pelicans were at the Nets in New York. Pelicans won 38 to 128. The Bucks were at the Magic. Bucks 111 to 104 for the Magic. The Clippers of Los Angeles were in the city of brotherly love. 76 is 112 to 98. The Wizards were in Chicago. Wizards 101 to 90. The Lakers were at the Mavericks in Dallas. The Mavericks 130 to 123 for the Lakers. The Spurs were at the Warriors. The Warriors continued their winning ways, 122 to 105. The Nuggets and Suns in Phoenix. Nuggets 123 to 113. On to college basketball, college men's basketball to be more specific. Butler University, one of our favorites, and number one Villanova. Villanova 86 to 75 over Butler University. And in an overtime, Virginia Tech and number two Virginia. Tech edged them by 1 point, 61 to 60 over number two Virginia. Purdue, number three, and Michigan State, number four. Michigan State came out on top on this one, 68 to 65 over Purdue. The Boilermakers, Xavier and Creighton University, another 1 point game out in Omaha. Xavier 72 to 71. Very good basketball coming up on March Madness shortly. The Texas Tech and Kansas State. It was all Texas Tech, 66 to 47 over Kansas State. Auburn and Georgia. It was all Auburn here. Number 8, Auburn 78 to 61 over Georgia. Number 10, Kansas and Baylor. Baylor pulled this one out, 80 to 64. Gonzaga and number 12, Gonzaga. Number 11, St. Mary's. Gonzaga 78 to 65 there. Be interesting trying to get your brackets together. USC and number 13, Arizona. It was all Arizona, 81 to 67. Iowa and Ohio State. It was Ohio State. Number 14, 82 to 64. Tennessee and Alabama. It was all Alabama here, 78 to 50 over number 15, Tennessee. Number 17, Oklahoma at Iowa State. Iowa State 88 to 80. Iowa State, a basketball type. Oklahoma State and number 19, West Virginia. Oklahoma State 88 to 85 over West Virginia. North Carolina and North Carolina State, otherwise known as NC State. North Carolina number 25, 96 to 89. Connecticut and Wichita State. It was all Wichita State in Wichita. They are 22. They're ranked 22. 95 to 74 over Connecticut. San Diego State and Nevada. Nevada number ranked 23. It was all Nevada. 83 to 58 over San Diego State. Kentucky and Texas A&M. It was A&M 85 to 74, and Kentucky's ranked 24. The University of Miami and Boston College. Boston College, a two-pointer, 72 to 70. And that is men's basketball. On to the NHL. And many interesting names here. The Sabres and Bruins. Sabres 4-2 over the Bruins. The Senators and Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs 6-3. The Predators and Canadiens. Predators 3-2. Predators of Nashville. The Montreal Canadiens. The Devils and Blue Jackets. That was all Blue Jackets, 6-1 over the Devils of New Jersey and the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Kings and the Lightning. Lightning 4-3 in that contest. The Kings of Los Angeles and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Having a hockey team in Tampa Bay. The Avalanche and Hurricanes. Hurricanes 3-1. The Hurricanes of Carolina and the Avalanche, where they have an avalanche in the mountains of Colorado. The Blackhawks and Wild. The Wild shut out the Blackhawks in Minnesota. The Flyers and Coyotes. Flyers are 4-3 there. The Flyers are flying out of Philadelphia, and of course in Arizona they have the Coyotes. They have actually real Coyotes there. The Oilers and Sharks. Sharks 6-4 there. The San Jose Sharks and the Edmonton Oilers, because they have all there, or did have all there. We don't know. Anyway, we'll see you on the Monday morning quarterback on Monday morning. We'll be quarterbacking political events. We used to bill it more quarterbacking talk shows. We'll check out the talk shows and see. Many times we'll look at all the CBS Face the Nation. There's a variety there. And sometimes, depending on whom is on which talk show, we'll do Meet the Press or the CNN, etc. out there and see exactly where they are. We have a numbers man. That's a macroeconomics program. We'll be, of course, talking about the markets and where the markets are. The markets in retreat. The Bulls and the Bears have an interesting contest. A lot of things are being shorted there. It is a new world. That's not good news for DJ Trump. And also fears of quote-unquote inflation. The Fed is tapped now to go to raise interest rates. Probably 25 basis points 3 or 4 times this year, depending on what is going on, how it's affecting emerging markets. Has definitely an effect there. And we'll also have an open source report this weekend. So it's very busy here at WBR Radio and on the Boston Red Network, who brought us to you. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on a Monday morning. Good day.